From 2001 to 2013, Grand Theft Auto had evolved greatly, for the better, but somewhere in 2014, all of that came to a screeching halt. Today I'm going to talk about what I believe is the last great Grand Theft Auto game, and for me, I think that's Grand Theft Auto 4. I want y'all to let me know down below in the comments though, what do you think is the last great Grand Theft Auto game? Nowadays, it's not about the experience, it's about shark cards and paying to play for overpriced things in an online mode that is really, really boring. That's why we haven't seen anything new in over 7 years in Grand Theft Auto, and fans everywhere are bored. So if y'all enjoy this video, please click thumbs up. Let's see if we can go for 3,000 likes. Please, for the algorithm, it just takes 0.2 seconds. Number 6, the time of release. So maybe my judgment is being clouded by years of nostalgia because I was only 10 years old when Grand Theft Auto 4 released in April 2008. I was just a kid. The only worries I had was trying to impress my 5th grade crush who didn't like me back, damn it, Mia, and hoping I didn't get the red ring of death on my Xbox 360. In the span of 1 year and 2 months, I grew up pretty quick and my life changed. In February 2008, my great-grandma passed away. This was the first experience I've ever had with death. I played GTA San Andreas to distract my mind. That summer, my mom was in a really toxic, abusive relationship. Then that November, my grandfather passed away. And then in April 2009, my house burnt down and we lost pretty much everything, all within a year and 2 months. But during the summer of 2008, I had a friend named Brant, and he lived on the nice side of town. He had all the newest equipment, gadgets, electronics, games, all that stuff. And one day I went over there in May 2008, and he was playing Grand Theft Auto 4 on his Xbox 360. Now, I had heard about this game because I would go to Blockbuster to rent games for my 5-year-old PS2 at the time, and there was a pre-order bonus that you could get for pre-ordering Grand Theft Auto 4 through Blockbuster. It was an image of Nico Bellic in a picture frame, which I still actually have. They gave it to me without buying the game because I wanted it that bad. But when I saw the graphics of Grand Theft Auto 4 for the first time, I remember being so amazed. I remember it was the water that drew me in. I thought it was just the most realistic thing that I had ever seen. And I miss those days and I miss those feelings. But considering I only had a PS2 and was still playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas in 2008, it was quite the upgrade. And it wasn't until around August 2008 that I was fortunate enough to have had my grandma buy me an Xbox 360 just to play Grand Theft Auto 4. From that day forward, all my life consisted of was school and Grand Theft Auto 4. It was the most magical time ever. My buddy Lorenzo would also come over and we would roleplay for hours on end and just take turns playing GTA 4. It was my escape from life and all the things I thought was so horrible about life at 10 years old. I was depressed, and I've really just been depressed my whole life for no reason at all. But while all this might sound situational, I feel like for a lot of people, Grand Theft Auto 4 captured a moment in time back in 2008 perfectly. Aside from everything that I just discussed, I also associate GTA 4 with cold winter nights of late 2008 and early 2009, when Barack Obama made history by becoming the first ever African-American president. We were still in the post-September 2001 era, the war on terrorism, and all that, and things were just different back then. Number 5, the story. So let's get down to the details. Grand Theft Auto 4 wouldn't be the game it is if it wasn't for its dark, gritty nature, captured through the story where we play as Nico Bellic, an Eastern European man who was broken by the events of his disturbing past from 10 years before, and the events he saw unfold whilst fighting in his country's civil war. Nico saw all of his best friends and even some of his family wiped out because one of the members of his unit sold everyone out to enemy forces to fund his heroin addiction. Nico, along with 2 others, were the sole survivors, and since then, Nico has been on a journey to find and exact revenge to rid himself of the pain that he carries around. That's what ultimately brings him to Liberty City. Upon arriving to Liberty City, however, Nico is dragged into the criminal underworld by his cousin Roman, and from there, things only get worse before they kind of get better and then really get worse again. It's just a dark ballad of horrible things that Nico has to face that, unfortunately for him, there's no happy ending to. Number 4, the setting. So I believe that the story and the setting go hand in hand here. It wouldn't be possible without one or the other. If Grand Theft Auto 4 took place in sunny Vice City, for instance, it just wouldn't be the same. Just like if Vice City took place in 2008 versus the 1980s. It's all about how you capture the atmosphere. And with Nico's dark past, that coincides perfectly with the dark, cold streets of Liberty City. Whether it be the creepy subway system shrouded in a mystery, the abandoned Sprunk factory that's believed to be haunted, or strangers like Eddie Lowe that you can encounter outside of your journey for revenge. There's just something so peacefully haunting about Liberty City that made it so fun, yet creepy, alone, and empty, all at the same time. Number 3, the simplicity. So Grand Theft Auto 4 was the last Grand Theft Auto game to really capture the simplicity of video games in the late 2000s. When Grand Theft Auto 5 released initially, it was on track to do the same, but better. But then that game stopped dead in its tracks when the single-player DLC was abandoned and Rockstar chose to focus solely on GTA Online. That's when and where things changed for the Grand Theft Auto series. And that's just the sad fate and truth of modern video games as a whole. The same thing even happened recently with Red Dead Redemption 2. Rockstar chose to abandon a masterpiece of a game for a broken online mode that very few enjoy. But when Grand Theft Auto 4 released in 2008, multiplayer was just a bonus. Grand Theft Auto 4 is the last Grand Theft Auto that brings us an amazing story, and at the same time, so much immersiveness combined with amazing graphics that really, at the time, no one had ever seen before. It was a really pivotal point in gaming history. And number 2, the multiplayer. So, as I just mentioned, the multiplayer back then was just an afterthought. With pre-customized characters to choose from, very limited customization options, you had to pick your weapons up around the map. It was an amazing bonus feature for its time, and really, I never got big into Grand Theft Auto 4's multiplayer until after GTA 5 was announced in late 2011. By that time, most Grand Theft Auto 4 fans were eager to leave the dark streets of Liberty City. After 3.5 years of being there really wasn't much left in this confined, restricted island that we hadn't already done before. When Grand Theft Auto 5 was announced to visit sunny Los Santos, it was a breath of fresh air. The dark, cold streets of Liberty City and our adventures there had all but become a thing of the past. But in the meantime, we had to wait another 2 years before we could leave. So throughout late 2011 to early 2013, before GTA 5 got delayed again, Grand Theft Auto 4 multiplayer became the hub of gathering for me and all my buddies. The role-playing and overall good times we had back then will last me a lifetime in my gaming memories. And all this just goes hand in hand with how simple things were back then. You didn't have to, and you really couldn't pay to have your own fun. You had to make your own fun. And number 1, the DLC. Grand Theft Auto 4 is the first and only Grand Theft Auto to feature a standalone DLC and expansion pack if you don't count Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories respectively. The genius tie-in of The Lost and Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony brought a new light to the dark nature of Grand Theft Auto 4 from a perspective that GTA fans had never really seen before, and how Rockstar tied everything together was so beautifully written. Back then, that's what would have been the future of gaming. We almost saw this with Grand Theft Auto 5, but somewhere in those years, all of that changed, and it all shifted towards multiplayer. Because that's where the money is made, but also where the longevity of games come from. GTA 5 hasn't lasted 7 years now because of GTA 5. No, it's because of GTA Online. GTA 5 died in 2015.